Welcome to Accepting, where I guide you to accept all aspects of your beautiful self, embrace your truth, and live your life that way. Hello, gorgeous, and a warm welcome to Accepting. This is episode 6 and part 2 of Accepting Your Sensitivity. I'm Aline, the acceptance coach, your host. I'm a mentor, I'm a channel, and I'm a coach. And I love to see highly sensitive people and empaths flourish. And in these episodes, we are deep diving into what acceptance means so you can accept all gorgeous aspects of your fabulous self. It all starts with accepting. In this episode, we're going to continue speaking about how we have pushed our sensitivity down and how it's continued from childhood into adulthood and how that can show up in various ways. So in this episode, I'm going to recap on how you may have pushed your sensitivity down in your childhood. I'm going to talk to you about how it's likely that pattern has continued and you've continued pushing that sensitivity down and how that's shown up for you. And then thirdly, I'm going to take you through a gorgeous process where my intention is you can start really accepting where you are now and start really beginning to accept your gorgeous sensitivity. All right, so grab a cup of tea and let's dive in. So firstly, in the previous episode, we spoke about how we can start to very gently push our sensitivity away. And that, again, is not a blame zone. That's just accepting that those around us, although it's a completely loving environment, didn't understand us. And we either didn't feel we could express what was happening with us, or as we expressed, we weren't understood. And we were told, no, you can't do that. You're too sensitive, etc., so forth. Please listen to the previous episode if you haven't yet. And as this happened, we started building up limiting beliefs that started entering into our system of the narrative that we were telling ourselves of we can't do this, we can't do that, that's stupid, that's silly, that's not going to get you anywhere, etc., etc., etc. So that's from the formative years up to about 16, 17. And if by 16, 17, we still haven't been able to embrace our gifts, then it's likely that will follow through. We may have them as a hobby, wonderful, or we may have gone in a completely different direction and rebelled and started pushing them down and entering into the fight, flight, freeze zone where we either fought resistance, where any opportunity to embrace these beautiful gifts showed up, we would push against it, or flight, we would distract ourselves with environments perhaps that really didn't serve us, and environments where we entered into addictive tendencies to distract ourselves from who we truly, truly are, really pushing it down, or freeze. We entered into almost a crippling fear if any opportunity came up for us to embrace that, which was truly our gift, which we felt when we were born, when we were in our formative years, because we've been told we can't do that. So that's the narrative we've been telling ourselves. Okay, so that's a quick roundup of episode 1. So now what I'd like to talk about is as we enter into adulthood with those limiting beliefs, with that fight, flight, freeze response, how that can affect everything. So we've gone from a point of being born, having these wonderful gifts, not being able to express them for whatever reason, again, no blame zone. And we're now in a situation where very likely, my gorgeous, where you're now pretending to be somebody that you're not. You've created a persona of who everybody else has told you are, and you're living your life in that way. And we spoke about this in the 3Fs episode. And again, if you haven't watched that, please go back. And so once you've built this persona that you've created because everybody has told you who you are and what you are, you're now living your life from this point. So it's very likely any creative juices, any of your gifts have been completely pushed away as you were living this life and pretending to be somebody that you're not without realizing it. And again, it's a no judgment zone. So what I would really like to say is, when we're recognizing and having these, oh, okay, these eureka moments, it's really important to be very gentle and very compassionate with ourselves, and equally with anybody who has been in our lives at the beginning who has instilled these limiting beliefs into us, because we chose to have a life like this. We chose before we were born to enter into this situation, because very likely so we can have this experience so we can help others. Okay, so that's really important. And it's really important in accepting how we got to where we are, is accepting everything happened exactly the way it was supposed to, or we chose for it to happen, so we can have all the experience, we've had all the growth, we can stand in our power now and say, this is who I truly am. Thank you for the experiences. Thank you for showing me how strong I truly am. Thank you for showing me how it's so easy to lose myself, and how I can really help others not lose themselves. Okay, my gorgeous. So if it's highly like if you're a healer, you're a seer, you're a psychic, you're an artist. And again, I explained before, I see creativity in the same way as I see artistry. I see it all under one umbrella. And there's so many ways. The healing arts, the performing arts, it's all for me is creativity and artistry. So once we accept everything that's happened has got us to the point of who we are now, that is when we can start changing our narrative of what we've been telling ourselves. So when we go from childhood to teens to 20s to entering into adulthood with this persona that we've created, it's highly likely that as you entered the work environment, you entered from the point of view of good girl, good boy, people pleasing, and you did everything in that environment so you could make other people happy. So it's very likely that whatever work that you were doing, you were excelling in. Say, for example, you had a real passion for performing arts and drama, and you weren't allowed to do that. It's very likely you entered into a work environment where your natural talents of public speaking and being in front of people came into play. And you were, I'm not going to use inverted commas because not everybody's watching, people are listening. And it's very likely that you were acting in that role. So the persona that you created, you have been acting that way all your life. And so what happens is, when we're told who we are and we show up as how we've been told who we are, and we're not embracing who we truly are, this is when our 3Fs and our fight, flight, and freeze responses can really kick in, because we're constantly adapting to change around us. And the 3Fs, the limbic brain, comes in and tells us when there's any change in our environment to keep us safe. And if we're in a state of constantly changing who we are to please people so they feel good and we feel good, then we're constantly in a state of fight, flight, and freeze, and we're not present. We may be gliding along like a swan for others. Underneath, our webbed feet are going like billy-o underneath to kind of keep up with where we are as we're adapting. So that's a really nice analogy to use, actually. So everybody sees us like a swan gliding along, and what's really going under the surface that we possibly don't realize either, because that's normal for us. So, as I'm talking to you about this, and as you're having realizations and eureka moments, it's really important, my gorgeous, that you're really kind and compassionate with yourself. We're not in a blame zone. We're not in, oh, well, I should have done it that way. I should have realized this earlier. That's not what this is about. This is about recognizing that because those limiting beliefs were built up, because others told us, this is who you are, you're an academic, you're great at sales, you're great with people, this is what you should be doing. And because others told us, well, you're not going to make a living from painting or creating or woodwork or whatever it was that you had a massive passion about, or sculpting or music or composing, whatever it was that you had a huge, huge passion about, and now you've pushed those gifts away, it's recognizing that you didn't pursue those gifts because you built up those beliefs, not in a blame zone. So when we enter into adulthood and possibly in, throughout our lives, and opportunities come up for us to pursue these gifts, it's very likely that that fight, flight, freeze comes in because of that limiting belief, because of that barrier we've been building up, and we don't take those opportunities. So again, be really compassionate with yourself. So we're not going into the missed opportunity world. We're just recognizing it. So now, as those opportunities come up, because they are, as we're creating space to open up to those opportunities, you can absolutely embrace those now. So we're not going into, oh, I missed this, I missed that, I missed that. It all happened exactly the way it has happened for you to be where you are now in the present moment. Okay. And also in terms of relationships, so work relationships, friendships, intimate relationships, it's very likely, as an empath and a highly sensitive person, that naturally you went into people pleasing mode and you lost yourself in work, or you lost yourself in a relationship, in a friendship, in an intimate relationship, because you were in a state of fight, flight, freeze, because you're in a state of people pleasing, in this persona of everybody else told you who you were, the good girl, the good boy, that when we enter into a situation and we want everybody else to feel okay, we can lose ourselves. So it could be that you ended up in relationships where you were massively taken advantage of in all walks of life. And it could be that you entered into situations where you were in friendship environments that really, really didn't serve you. And it could be that you were in situations that really, really didn't serve you because, again, you didn't know who you truly were. So you were using distractions, maybe alcohol, maybe recreational drugs, maybe toxic relationships, maybe something as a distraction to take you away from who you truly are. And also recognizing that this has just followed you through. And then once we get into that space of, oh, well, I entered that toxic relationship with that person because that's how I was showing up. That's how my energy was showing up. And I was using that as a distraction because my limbic brain was kicking in whenever an opportunity came for me to embrace my gifts, to take me in the other direction, to keep me safe. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? It's like, oh, okay. When we're actually in that moment, it's not so simple. And it can feel hugely, hugely traumatic. I am not glossing over that. So, what I'm talking about is we go through certain situations as we're in this persona. And then what can start happening is we start recognizing, actually, this doesn't feel right for me. Our gifts start coming in because the universe is talking to us. And we start realizing, this doesn't feel quite right for me. And there's a little higher self coming in and having a little chat with us that we can ignore because we're so used to being the way we are. Okay? So that's what I wanted to talk to you about in terms of entering any kind of relationships. And then what can happen is, once we've been in these relationships, work, intimate, whatever it may be, and our gifts start coming in and our intuition starts coming in, and we start to feel something doesn't feel quite right in this. And we can stay in there for, another year, another 2 years, another 3 years, however long it is, and not listen to what the universe is trying to tell us, then it's highly likely that the universe will come in and start removing things for us. So it's highly likely that you may have had an emotionally traumatic event or a physically traumatic event that has got you to a point where you don't recognize yourself anymore. And this is the most beautiful point from where we can start changing our story. And again, I'm not glossing over the traumatic relationships you've been in. I'm not glossing over whatever's happened to you. All I'm saying is that experience has taught you, this doesn't feel right for me. And you have either learned from that and gone into your next relationship knowing what you will accept, or you haven't quite learned from that, and you're given another experience. You choose another experience before you get to that point. So that persona that we've created when we're younger and we're going all the way, through our adulthood, and shows up in various ways, it is, if you like, it's almost like a protector. It's like a smokescreen. It's like a shield that we put up so people accept us. And it's not about people accepting us. It's about us accepting ourselves. So if you're in a situation, and there's a reason you're watching or listening to this, if you're in a situation that's been coming up and it hasn't felt quite right for you, and you keep hearing more and more and more, you start feeling more and more, this doesn't feel quite right, listen to that. It may be that you've been in a situation before and some emotional event or a traumatic event has happened, and all of a sudden things are moving away around you. So we're going really gently with accepting your sensitivity. And what we're doing at the moment is we're recognizing where that may have shown up for you. It's a no blame zone. We're not blaming the toxic relationships that we were in. We're not blaming that we didn't realize sooner. None of that. We are just acknowledging that because we have had this persona, or we have this persona that was told who we are, we didn't embrace who we truly are because of the limiting beliefs that were set when we were in our formative years, and they got stronger and stronger and stronger. We've lived our lives from that point. So it's just about accepting that. Okay? So what I would really, really love you to do is the same as we did in the previous episode. So before, the exercise was just to recognize where you started creating those limiting beliefs. And in this episode, what I would like you to do is take pen to paper and just write down. And again, this isn't going into reliving, oh, I missed that, should have done that, shoulda, woulda, coulda. This is not what this is. This is recognizing and accepting. So what I would really like you to do is just take pen to paper and just recognize 3 points in your adult life of where there was an opportunity that came up for you and you didn't take it. And this isn't blame. This is just acknowledgement and acceptance. So if you can choose 3, it might be that there was the most beautiful person who asked you to go on a date, and because you're so used to being in toxic relationships, this was a very beautiful person. It just didn't feel normal for you. So you may have done everything you could not to go on that date and not to be with that person. That could be an example. It could be you were in a role and somebody recognized something in you and offered you something entirely different, complete change of life, complete change of work life, complete change. And they offered you this incredible opportunity because they saw something in you and you didn't take it. So that's another example. It may be there was an opportunity for you to move countries or to travel, anything like that came up. And because it didn't feel normal, because you created this persona based on your limiting beliefs, you didn't take that opportunity. And perhaps another example is where you were in your hobby with your artistry and somebody saw something wonderful in you and offered you an opportunity, and you just said, oh, no, I can't do that. That wouldn't be any good for me. Recognize that's because of the limiting beliefs that were created that have been carrying you through. That's all I would like you to do. And be really gentle and compassionate with yourself, because this is eureka moments, okay? This is really beautiful eureka moments. So the previous episode, we spoke about accepting your sensitivity in terms of limiting beliefs and formative years. In this episode, we've spoken about how you may have pushed your sensitivity completely away, created a persona based on what people told you that you are and who you are, and that you've actually been play acting for very much of your life as a highly sensitive person and an empath. And there may have been beautiful opportunities that came in, and because of your limiting beliefs, because you were told who you are and what to do, you've created a fear response when anything comes up that's to do with your beautiful gifts. So it's just eureka moments. It's just recognizing, it's accepting that's how it happened. Because it could be, I'll give you an example. For me, there were beautiful creative aspects that I really, really wanted to do and I was involved in. And it came to choosing my subjects, and I was told that I couldn't do that. Many, many years later, I asked that person why. And I was told because I was too sensitive. And that person then said to me, well, what have you done about it since? And it was a perfectly reasonable question to ask. And I did think, yeah, what have I done about it since? And it's recognizing that because I built those beliefs up, because I was told who I was, because I was told I was this, that, and the next thing, that whenever any opportunity came up like that, on my limiting beliefs, I didn't believe that was for me. And I wouldn't have felt or thought to go into any aspect of that creativity because that's not who I was. That's not who I thought I was. So just recognize that in yourself, my gorgeous. We're not going into blame. We're not going into, oh, no, I missed out. We're going into acceptance. So as these gorgeous opportunities come up, as you're creating that space, you can recognize them and you can really embrace them. Okay? So the next episode, we're going to be talking about accepting your space. And we're going to be talking about how we can start creating that space. So what I would really love you to do is just be really gentle with yourself after listening to this. Do some gorgeous nourishment, nurturing self-care for the fabulous you. And do get in touch with me if there's any questions you have. Please get in touch. And If there is anything that you would like me to cover in any of these episodes, also please let me know as well. I'd love to know. And also, if you feel this would really help anybody you know, please, please kindly share and spread the word so we can all support each other. So thank you so much for joining me. Here's to your self-acceptance. Here's to your self-empowerment. Here's to you living your most fabulous life, my gorgeous. And here's to you flourishing and embracing all aspects of your beautiful, beautiful self. Ho. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Accepting. Please do stay tuned for future episodes and also subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If there's anything at all that you'd like me to cover in future episodes, please get in touch and let me know. You can also follow me on Instagram at The Acceptance Coach and on TikTok at Solution Union 99. And if you'd like to have any coaching at all, or you would like to discuss this, do book an expansion call. For now, I'm your host, Aline, and to your self-acceptance, gorgeous, with so much love.